What was the comedy show?
Yeah.
Did you go?
Yeah.
How was it? Other than that, how was the theater, Mrs. Lincoln? Yeah, that's okay. Oh yeah. Okay, so yesterday we were dealing with the following Shaila. Um, a man marries a woman, and then a couple of weeks later, lo and behold, he's got a line of creditors at his door. Well, not a line, just a guy says, where's the money? Your wife, your new bride acted as a guarantor on a loan that her friend had taken. So first we have to figure out um, what the rule would be if a woman goes into debt. And the answer that we saw basically yesterday, if a woman is in debt and then she brought in a dunya, she brought assets into the marriage, then any creditor, even if that creditor pre-existed the marriage, can collect from whatever she brought into the marriage because his lien on the property pre-existed the husband's rights to those assets. Okay, so um, but he also said that it depends whether it was an oral loan without paper or whether there was paper. When there's paper, there's a lien. When there's no paper, there's no lien on her property. And then the creditor won't be able to go after the husband. Okay? Aval imlo hichnisa lo klum. But let's say she brought no assets into, like I said, a real winner. She's in hock and she didn't bring anything into the marriage. Ein lo malva mehechen legabot. So then the creditor has no right to collect from the husband. It's not the husband's debt. The yeshlo lahamtin ad shiyu lamos shahabal lo zocha behem u'teshalem etacho. And she has to wait until the woman accumulates her own independent funds. So one of you asked yesterday, how could she accumulate all her any independent funds? Anything that comes to her automatically goes to the husband. There are ways for a woman to accumulate independent funds. So, for example, if a person gives her a gift and says, "Almanas she'ein labailech reshusbo," I give this to you on the condition that your husband has no control over these assets. Usually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it applies to Yerusha. If she inherits something, I'm not sure that the husband has a right to that, but I think it has to be phrased in a certain way. Or the creditor, if she never acquires funds that are independently hers, the creditor will have to wait until the marriage is over. She becomes an almana or she gets divorced. Yeah, yeah. Usually a woman doesn't inherit her husband, but um, you have unless it's written that way. Okay. Ve'afal pisha hatosos bebava metzia kosv b'shem Rav Chaygon shahabal chayav l'shalim chovos ishto shalipsa kodem nisuin. He says this is all notwithstanding the fact that Tosfos in Bava Metzia brings from Rav Achaigon that a husband is obligated to pay the debts of his wife, even if she went into debt before marriage. Umashma filu milva al peh. And that sounds like he's saying even if she accumulated only oral debts, not debts written on contracts. Mikol makom hatosvos sham dachu istavar. But Tosfos rejects the opinion of Rav Chaygon. Okay, and just to get the background of that, the footnote in Hay says as follows. He says, Dehine Isa b'Gemara sham sheRebbi Yehuda Omer shahabal chayev l'shalim al karbanos ishto kevin shekosov la biksuva. He says the Gemara brings an opinion that a husband, let's say a woman pledged a korban before she got married. She made a pledge of a korban, so she has a debt. So the statement of Rebbe Yehuda is that a husband has to pay for that korban. Okay? Because what did the husband write in the ketubah? V'hitchayev l'shalem kol achrayas de'islach alai mikadmas dana. We don't write this in our ketubas today, but there used to be a line in the ketubah that says that any liabilities I hereby now assume from this day forward. Any of your liabilities I assume from this day forward. ולפי זה, פסק רב החי דאף על פי שהגמרא בבבא בסרא כסבה שהבעל חייב רק במלווה שהאישה לבסה בשטר ולא בעל פה. So, and then Rav Achai writes that the Gemara does say that a husband has to pay the debts of his wife if she borrowed money with paper. But we paskin that even, like Rav Yehuda says, that even if she only had oral debts, the husband still has to assume those debts. But Tosfos disagrees. Tosfos says that if it's not a written debt, then there's no lien on her property, and there is no liability for the husband. When the Gemara says that a husband has to honor his wife's pledges, that's only her pledges, but not her debts. And that's how we paskin. We paskin that a husband does not assume the wife's debts unless there's paper, in which case the creditor can collect from only those assets that he had a lien on. And even though it means that the husband has to forfeit those assets, this was a pre-existing lien before he married her and acquired her assets, and therefore he can't protest. He has nothing to say. So I don't know, is there anything in secular law that talks about assuming the debts of a spouse? Really? Right.
If it's silent, then you don't. There's nothing written, then the husband does not.
And I would guess a wife also, her husband goes into debt, right?
There was family law regime, right, where family assets, and so that's a different thing, but that's or not.
Yeah, but let's say the father didn't. Father, or she's of age. She's a bogeret, which means she's over 12 and a half years old. So all of those laws of the Torah that a father annuls his daughter's vows as if she's only up till she's 12 and a half. Yeah. So that knocks out a lot of yeah.
I think the father was the guarantor. And he said the wife here and that the concept of guaranteeing can be done verbally as opposed to the specifically the wife lent money or not necessarily in a guarantee capacity, which we don't it can be created by just verbal statement.
Correct. However, your guarantorship is generated through a verbal statement, but not a lien on your property. So a woman can say, lend my friend the money, I'm good for it. I'll cover her if she doesn't pay you back. But she doesn't sign any paper. There's no lien on her property. She is halachically chayiv to pay that money if her friend defaults. But now that she's married, all of her assets are relinquished to her husband. The husband can say, you have no lien. Leave me alone. Don't lean on me. Even if there are witnesses, she says, yes, I'm chayiv. I'll try to get some independent money from without my husband taking possession of it, but I have no assets to my name. So I acknowledge that I have a debt to you. But until such time that I can acquire independent assets, you have no right to take the money from my husband. A woman is considered to be penniless according to halacha once she gets married, unless she can prearrange to have independent assets. So, let's say she has a wealthy father. Her father can say to her, I know that everything that you've brought, the dowry that you brought into the marriage, your husband controls. Okay. But I'd like you to have a regular stipend in addition to whatever your husband provides. So I'm going to give you $1,000 a month, and your husband has no access to it. And they draw up an arrangement that way. It is possible for a woman to acquire independent assets over the course of her marriage. In a situation where she was in debt, she would have to deliver that cash over to her creditor. Could you put a lien on a ketubah? Yeah, but the ketubah is not collectible until after the marriage concludes. So yeah, there is a lien on. I mean, the creditor would be able to collect from her ketubah, but only afterwards. Yeah.
The husband needs a guarantor from the bank for his business. Okay, the wife has money, so let's bring the wife into the bank manager's office, sign a guarantee. So not given the opportunity to really explain the stuff to her, not giving independent legal advice, go get your own lawyer, talk about it, sign here, right? I insist you sign for my business. She signs, husband defaults or whatever, bank then comes to wife, on the guarantee. And the guarantee is considered a discharge. She's discharged. Why? Because
Discharge means that
she's off the hook.
she's off the hook.
Because it was unconscionable or undue influence, or she didn't have independent legal advice. It's just not fair. It's
Right.
unconscionable. So in that case, she would not be liable, even though she did sign the guarantee.
With the papers.
Not worth it. Yeah. It's so about the context, right? But,
Interesting.
yeah.
What happened to feminism in that case?
Yeah.
Like the head of the universities that just said it's all about context, right? In this case, it really is about context.
Okay.
I guess if the woman owed a lot of money, she wouldn't set up this situation where she has access to funds, because then she would have to relinquish them to the.
Yeah, unless it's on her conscience,
Right. She could, when she goes.
Okay. We'll just take a look at the next tshuva. Asiyat mirpeset shetifsol sukato shel hadayar lamata. Can I make some kind of balcony in my apartment that will make it impossible for my neighbor who lives below me to build a kosher sukkah? So, yeah, this is all Choshen Mishpat. This is all Choshen Mishpat. So this is our next shaila. Our next shaila is dealing with Ani gar b'koma shniya. I live on the second floor. V'hashalchein shagar mitachtai irchivet beito v'gam hotzi mirpeset l'suka b'haskamati. And my downstairs neighbor did some renovations, expanded his home, and also built a patio outside of his house, a place where he could build a sukkah. And I consented to that. I said, no problem. But I want to expand my apartment now in the way that my downstairs neighbor expanded his apartment. But my neighbor is claiming that if I do that, I'll ruin a portion of his patio because it won't be kosher anymore for his sukkah. ואחר כך יצטרך לשבת בסוכה קטנה. It says right now he has a big place, a big expansive place for a sukkah, big sukkah for his big family. And now I'm precluding him and only will allow him to have a tiny sukkah. Ha'im ta'anato ta'ana, does he have a valid claim? To be continued. All right. Have a great day. A guten chodesh, everybody. Let's go down.